Right, so I actually have a quite eclectic career. I initially started in academia. I actually did a PhD in medical genetics at Oxford. Unfortunately, I have very sensitive skin, so the first part of my PhD involved working in a biosafety containment level 3 laboratory, which stipulated quite a regimental kind of hygiene regime, and I was just not responding to that well. So I decided to sort of move out of, I realized I need to move out of the laboratory, but I'm still quite geeky. I'm kind of quite sort of a sociable geek or nerdy. I effectively found Cisco by chance, and I sort of actually realized technical consulting is probably quite a good career option from my sort of mentality and sort of my kind of personality. So, but once I sort of got into sort of Cisco, I sort of realized actually, you know, our communication protocols are designed to, with connectivity in mind, certainly not security. And I sort of realized actually more devices are connected going forward, and this is going to be a big, it's an important field. And one thing that sort of attracted me to it was when I was in medical genetics, I did a lot of statistical analysis, big data, machine learning type of, use machine learning algorithms. So it sort of allowed me to sort of, I suppose, carry some of my expertise over. So I've been in cybersecurity the past 5 years now. So I think one thing that the PhD actually gives you is it gives you, it's research, right? So it gives you an ability to sort of like find and absorb large amount of information, because that's what you needed to do while you're, when you're doing research, because you need to know what the developments are, what other researchers published and what experiments they conducted. So, the sort of, I've always been quite curious person. I have quite a lot of intellectual curiosity. So I have, it's something that even if I wasn't changing, I'll probably be sort of going, oh, that's quite interesting. Let's take a look at that. So I think the research certainly gave that, sort of improved that aspect of, of my sort of ability or personality. I think the other thing about a PhD is, especially towards the end, it's just perseverance. You literally, it's just show up, do the work, get it done. I think it's sort of, if you sort of finished it, you sort of literally, it's just be that stubborn sort of pig-headedness that you need to sort of carry on with it, which is fantastic if you need to sort of all of a sudden, change directions. And it's sort of the fact that I was, I had the confidence that I can pick up kind of information, new topics, and have that kind of understanding. I think it turned out to be very valuable, in fact. And of course, there's a lot of the big data kind of and machine learning aspect of it. I sort of carried on in cybersecurity because that's a lot of the lots of toolings based on that. So I think one of the things that so before 2006, I mean, I've been working in sort of technical consulting for over a decade now. Before 2016, I sort of effectively just worked with customers, and how would I put it? I sort of saw a lot of the same issues. Like lots of customers had exactly the same issues. They asked the same kind of questions. So if you're in consulting, you're sort of often working with more than one customer, even at one time. So I saw a lot of that, and I was like, there's got to be a, better way of everyone's starting from scratch. There's got to be something that we can share. And I think it's also very much sort of part of my academic kind of mindset, where you basically because especially wet lab work, it is significant investment, and it's time and resources. So to the sort of consensus is to sort of share with the community so that others can learn from kind of your experience and your data, your results. So I think the sort of combination meant that it just made me sort of want to effectively contribute something to the community so that people are not, starting from scratch. There's some material out there. And I think a lot of people are writing that now, so which is absolutely fantastic. So there's all that information you can use out there, even if you sort of not had the opportunity to sort of start, be on the ground, boots on the ground. However, if I have the opportunity to sort of get those practical exposure, I will share it. And I think it's just something I feel quite passionate about. I think it's so I think it was quite unexpected. I think in the UK or even sort of in the West, we were not expected to sort of be as badly affected by, I think. I recently, I only joined OneWeb about 6 months ago. So during the majority of the pandemic, I was within the company Experian. And we just needed to pivot very quickly, especially the technology team, right? Because all of a sudden, people were, in the UK anyway, folks were, there's a significant number of folks working full-time in the office, or at least part-time. But once the pandemic hit, it's work from home. So that we basically had to make very quick pivot in terms of, moving technologies, adopting ways of working that allows people to stay safe, physically safe, but still productive. So it is, I think the initial thing was the sort of the pivot, from sort of a very distributed system. Although having said that, I think most organizations, especially most multinationals, have some elements of, remote work. So it wasn't as trying as I thought. I mean, it actually happened. It went really well, and it happened without much of a glitch. So I think that's the initial thing. I think the other thing about, the sort of one thing that I think that pandemic has accelerated is the move to public cloud. So moving resources, assets to public cloud. And part of the reason is that because there's so much infrastructure already in place, and it's an infrastructure that's much better at supporting a distributed workforce as opposed to like a hub and spoke, which is sort of a more traditional office-based type of workforce. There is, when you're moving assets to, onto the public cloud, there are, there's going to be some pain points, right? But because of the pandemic, I think it was a lot easier to get that type of investment to make that long-term transition. And I think that's how, for the next few years at least, I think that's what the trend is going to be like for organizations. I think from the sort of most notable trend I've seen so far is, I think a lot of cybersecurity, or even sort of organizations that's not that just provide services, I think they are very much more including cybersecurity as a sort of that kind of mentality, and making sure that their solutions are as secure as possible, as well as building up a sort of, I think it's becoming like an ecosystem. So if you look at some of the, cloud providers, you actually have, identity access management tools, you have log management, it becomes more of an ecosystem going forward. And I think that's going to be, from from a management point of view, I think that is going to be a lot easier, you know, because you're hopefully managing a fewer number of vendors, which can be, just speaking from experience, it can be quite a lot of overhead, especially with contract renewal. So I think it's becoming more ecosystem like, which means that it's also easier for you know, for things like integration in terms of deployment. So faster, I think faster delivery is the sort of main theme I sort of see from the last 18 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
I think, obviously, I'm Asian, so I think as when I was growing up, and even, you know, even early on in my career, I didn't see a lot of people that look like me, and I don't mean like Asian, I mean like females. Like, in computer networking at the time that, but when I started, it was something like 5% women, like if you're lucky. So I didn't see anybody that looked like me. I do think one of the things that the pandemic has shown how important it is to have the diversity of thought and the ability to do, you know, to do things. You know, if you look at sort of organizations that pivoted very quickly and easily, it's because they had more than one way of doing things. You know, it's like when they had a group of remote workers, and then they had a group of people who were more sort of office based. So I think, given how uncertain things are, I do think the diversity of thought is important. And I do, you know, and it is my hope that, you know, for the next generation, there will be more kind of women, and there will be more folks of ethnic minorities. Because honestly, when I was growing up, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in leadership positions. Honestly, didn't. So I do hope, you know, because if we're not, I do think we're missing out, we're losing out a lot on sort of a pool of talent if we're not sort of tapping into that. So I think for organizations it's important. And of course, I personally like to see more women and people of Asian descent among the senior ranks.
Absolutely. I mean, you said it there, having those different voices and those diverse voices and those diverse people in your...
I think one thing that I had, so I was fortunate enough to, when I was at Experian, they put me onto a leadership program, actually a female leadership program. And I think one of the things that one of the sponsors of the program basically said to me is, you need to make yourself more visible. Now, at that point, I think, you know, I was mostly just writing blogs. And I think what she was trying to say was, actually, you know, it's great. You've done the work, you know your stuff, but you need to, you know, be more visible in the community to show that, you know, that you do know that you're here effectively. And I think for women, I think that's one of the things that we probably don't do as well. And also, Asian, I think it's one of those, it's like, it's head down. We do our work fantastically well, and, you know, we do the homework, but actually you need to sort of say, hey, you know, I'm here. Mm-hmm. I know what I'm doing. And, you know, please give me a voice as well. So I think that was a fantastic piece of advice. You know, she was just like, literally, look, Wendy, you have to go out there. You have to sort of, you know, do these conferences. Because to be honest, I wasn't that comfortable with presenting at conferences at the beginning, but she was absolutely right. She was absolutely right.